She didn't call in sick. She didn't cancel her plans. She didn't think it was serious because it didn't feel serious. It was just a headache. That's what killed her. Well, I'm about to tell you. The doctors said it should never have happened. Her family said the same thing. And yet it did. This is Sarah's story. If you're new here, this channel tells real medical stories that most people never hear. Stories that could save your life or the life of someone you love. Hit subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Now, let's get back to Sarah. Before we get to what happened, I need you to understand who Sarah was. Because the most dangerous thing about her story is how ordinary she was. She was not reckless. She was not someone who avoided doctors. She ran 5 Burmese shots on weekends. She ate well. She had just had a full physical 8 months earlier. Everything came back clean. Sarah was the person who had her life together. And that is exactly why the headache didn't scare her. Healthy people don't die from headaches. That's just not something that happens. Except it does. And it happened to her. It started on a Saturday. A dull pressure behind her left eye. Not sharp, not blinding. The kind of headache you'd rate a 4 out of 10 on a bad day. She took 2 ibuprofen, drank some water, and spent the morning grading papers. By afternoon, it was gone. She thought nothing of it. Day 2, Sunday. The pressure came back, but this time it brought something with it. A stiffness in the back of her neck, the kind you get when you've slept in the wrong position. She stretched. She took more ibuprofen. She drove to her sister's house for dinner that evening. She laughed. She helped clear the table. She seemed, by every measure, completely fine. But there was one moment that her sister could not stop thinking about afterward. At some point during the evening, Sarah squinted at the kitchen light. Just for a second, she said, and these were her exact words, "God, that's bright." Her sister turned the dimmer down. They moved on. They talked about something else. Neither of them knew that what they had just witnessed, that single passing moment of sensitivity to light, is one of the cardinal warning signs of a brain under siege. It is called photophobia, and when it appears alongside a headache and a stiff neck, it is a medical emergency. Neither of them knew that. I need to pause here for just a second. If you know someone who gets frequent headaches, a parent, a partner, a friend, share this video with them right now. Not at the end. Right now. Because what's coming next is something everyone needs to hear. Go ahead. I'll wait. Day 3. Monday. The headache woke Sarah up at 6 a.m. And this time it was different. She described it to a colleague that morning as, and I need you to remember these exact words, the worst headache I've ever had. The worst headache I've ever had. In emergency medicine, that phrase is a 5-alarm warning. Doctors have a name for it. They call it a thunderclap headache, a sudden, severe head pain that peaks within 60 seconds and hits maximum intensity almost immediately. It is treated as a neurological emergency until proven otherwise. One of its leading causes is a subarachnoid hemorrhage, bleeding in the space surrounding the brain, caused by a ruptured aneurysm. Her colleague heard what she said. Her colleague told her to see a doctor. Sarah said she would. After school, she had a class at 8 a.m. she didn't want to cancel. She never made it to the doctor. Day 4. At 11:47 in the morning, Sarah was reading aloud to her class. A story about a rabbit named Mr. Pip. She was mid-sentence when she stopped. A student in the front row said she looked confused. She sat down at her desk slowly, the way you sit when a room won't stop spinning. She put her head down on her arms. She didn't get up again. The paramedics arrived in 8 minutes. By then, Sarah was unresponsive. Her pupils were unequal, a sign of dangerous intracranial pressure, the brain swelling against the inside of the skull. Her Glasgow Coma Scale score, the neurological test paramedics used to measure consciousness, was 6 out of 15. Normal is 15. At the hospital, a CT scan confirmed what the doctors already feared: a massive subarachnoid hemorrhage. An aneurysm in the left middle cerebral artery had ruptured completely. Blood was flooding the space around her brain. She went directly into emergency surgery. Sarah's family waited for 7 hours in that waiting room. The surgeon came out. He told them she had survived the operation, but the bleed had been catastrophic. The damage to her brain was severe and irreversible. She never woke up. For days after a headache, she wrote off as stress. Sarah was gone. She was 31 years old. I want to know something. In the comments below, have you or someone you know ever dismissed a headache like this? Ever told yourself it was nothing? Leave a comment. You might be surprised how many people write back. And stay with me, because what comes next could be the most important thing you hear today. So what was happening inside Sarah's brain during those 3 days she didn't know she was running out of? An intracranial aneurysm is a weak spot in the wall of a blood vessel in the brain, a tiny balloon-like bulge that fills with blood. Most people who have one will never know. Aneurysms can live silently in the brain for years, for decades. Medical estimates suggest that up to 6% of the population is carrying one right now, today, with no symptoms whatsoever. But in the hours and days before a full rupture, an aneurysm will sometimes leak just slightly. A warning bleed. Doctors call it a sentinel bleed. And when it happens, it produces a sudden, severe headache. A thunderclap headache. The worst headache of your life. Sarah's day 3 headache. The one that woke her at 6 a.m., the one she called the worst she'd ever felt, was almost certainly that sentinel bleed. Had she gone to an emergency room that morning, the doctors would have ordered a CT scan. They would have found the bleed. They would have had time to intervene, to clip the aneurysm, to relieve the pressure, to stop what was coming. She went to school instead. I'm not telling you this to make you afraid of headaches. I am telling you this because what happened to Sarah is preventable. And the only thing standing between a story like hers and a different ending is knowing 4 specific warning signs. Here they are. Learn them. Save them. Send this to someone you love. The first, a headache you describe as the worst of your life, especially one that came on suddenly, within seconds or minutes. That phrase alone is enough to go to the emergency room. Not urgent care. BER. The second, a headache combined with a stiff neck, especially if there is any fever alongside it. This combination is a hallmark presentation of bacterial meningitis, which can kill within 24 hours of the first symptom. The third, sensitivity to light or sound you don't normally experience, paired with a severe headache, not a little tiredness. A notable, uncomfortable reaction to normal light or sound. The fourth, a headache that wakes you from sleep. Tension headaches and migraines do not typically pull people out of deep sleep. A headache that does is treated as a red flag by neurologists. Any one of these, on its own, deserves medical attention. Sarah had all 4. Her last 3 days were not dramatic. No one panicked. No one sensed disaster was coming. That is precisely what makes her story so important and so common. Subarachnoid hemorrhages kill approximately 40% of patients before they ever reach a hospital. Of those who survive, a third are left with permanent disability. The difference between those outcomes almost always comes down to one decision. The decision to take the headache seriously. The decision to say, this one is different. The decision to go. Sarah's family asked for only one thing when they agreed to let her story be told. They asked that people listen.